participation planning form. A blank copy of the form will be on the Down Syndrome Guild discussion board page, so you can download it. It can be changed. If your team wanted to customize this, if you want to customize it, you can do anything you want with it. As I talk you through it, lovely Sarah here, lovely and brilliant Sarah, is going to write some things in here, into the form. So the major purpose of this form is this. There's a few purposes. The first is for the team to know what the general ed teacher is going to be teaching the following week to all the kids. You don't have to type anything yet. To be able to look at different kinds of lessons that the teacher is going to teach and figure out the supports that your child needs to participate in those lessons, to record some real specifics about what materials need to be available to your child, adapted and modified materials, and to figure out how they're going to assess whether your child has actually learned those learning objectives. Did you say crap? That's our word for the day. Okay, are you all on page, I think pages 1 and 2 are the instructions. We're now, I think, on page 3, which says Form 1, or Part 1, Unit Learning Objectives, Assessment, and General Supports. This is where we say, in this unit on the Civil War, on reading Romeo and Juliet, in this unit on early American settlements, what of all of that general ed information that typical kids are going to be held responsible for are going to be your child's priority learning objectives. So I'm going to pretend I'm the classroom teacher, and we're going to do the Civil War. Oh, it's so un-Russian. Okay, I'm going to pick something different. It's a unit on the solar system. So what Sarah would do is if she was the person in the meeting who was responsible for typing, she would write solar system, the subject is science, the student is Jeremy, and the date is whatever. And you can double click on that line to make it go away if you wanted to, but you don't have to. Yeah, so December 1st through December 7th, whatever. Now we're going to go down to big ideas. The big idea that and you can sometimes just look in the textbook, and science textbooks will often tell you what the big idea is our solar system is constantly changing. I'm not a science teacher. Okay. Vocabulary. Solar system. You can just put names of the 9 planets. Yes, 8 planets. Plus Pluto. Not a science teacher. Revolution, meaning around the sun. Rotation, a planet rotating around itself. Big Bang Theory. And cosmos. Let's go down a little bit on the form, because we're going to fill out all the general ed part first. So, knowledge and facts. Put into order smallest to biggest planet. Explain the Big Bang Theory. Compare and contrast Earth and one other planet. Oh, you're good. Skills. That's okay. Skills. Skills is and this, I'm sorry, this may be a United States thing. Close reading of the text. You'll look in your English language arts standards or any reading standards. Close reading of the text to identify main idea and supporting details. Writing a 2-page report on a planet. So writing. Another skill. Another skill. Can somebody help me? My brain's gone. Okay, pretend there's another skill. Okay, oral presentation. Awesome. Now let's go back up to the top of the form. Now we know what the gen ed teacher's teaching, and we're going to talk about Jeremy. So we're going to go over to the second column. I want Jeremy to get that same big idea. Our solar system is constantly changing. Vocabulary, I'm going to say for Jeremy, the vocab is solar system, name of 3 planets, and Big Bang Theory. It doesn't really matter what I'm picking. You get the idea, right? Let's go down to knowledge and facts. Order planets from smallest to biggest. I would like that. I think we could figure out an adaptation. The next thing could be list 2 ways that the Earth is the same and different from another planet. Okay? Other kids compare and contrast is going to be more extensive. Okay? You might say you want your kid to do 2 or 3 or something. Skills, close reading of the text to identify main idea and 1 supporting detail. Creating a picture book report with 10 pictures and labels, 3-word labels on each picture. And do an oral presentation using Pictello, using some kind of technology. Now we're going to go back up to the 3rd column, because here's where you can bring other annual goals from the IEP into these participation plans. What was that one? $30 and what? $19.99 now. You're too funny. So here's where the team could say, ooh, during this unit, here's a great opportunity. Jeremy will work on clear enunciation of initial sounds. Jeremy will work on collaborating with peers. Jeremy will work on his spelling. So you could pull a couple of IEP objectives off, and you don't have to go down any further. Go over to the 4th column. Here's where I want, and where you should want to know, how are they going to assess that Jeremy has learned these things, right? It's going to be it scores a 3 out of 4 on a rubric of what a quality presentation is. Gets 75% on his definitions test, where he's matching words with their picture and word definitions. And what's the other thing? Offers 3 ideas in his cooperative group, and asks another student his opinion. Do you see the point of doing this? Does anybody have a question about why this may or may not be helpful? If you look at the instructions, that's okay. the classroom teacher tells you this stuff. I would love it if the whole team were there and they were brainstorming what should go in the other columns while somebody writes this down. In the absence of everybody being there, post a Google Doc with this, then have the speech language pathologist jump on the Google Doc and add a couple of, are there any communication objectives that could be worked on? Have the OT go into the Google Doc. Are there any fine motor or sensory skills that could be worked on? So it can be done. See, the IEP, oh gosh, I'm starting to sound like I'm at the point in the workshop where I'm doing this. The IEP is a big roadmap. It does not tell you what exit to get off on mile 2. It does not tell you when you need to refill your gas tank. And this is the way why people struggle with making the IEP a really useful thing for kids, and why they struggle to figure out how does the IEP actually relate to what's going on in the general ed class. So this helps you with this big picture. Now, Sarah, if you could go down to the next part of this. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes? Yes. I think, 2 places. Under accommodations and modifications. Modified materials for each unit of study will be created to emphasize priority learning objectives and appropriate student supports. Some general statement like this. I haven't thought about that one. The other place it could go is under supports for the team on behalf of the student, which would be teachers will have 1 hour of common planning time a week to generate weekly participation plans for each subject area. Now, I'm going to tell you in real life, and here's the reality, not the pie in the sky. I'm not sure I've ever met a team that could get through all the subject areas every week. I just haven't, unless they had an hour a day. Over time, though, as teams use this process, what they find is that there's real patterns that come up over and over again. Duh. Every time there's a piece of text, they know, based on your child's reading and comprehension level, that he's going to have adapted text. Every time there's a fine motor activity, they know that your child is going to need some sort of adaptive equipment. Every time there's class discussion, your child needs a way to participate in class discussion. Those things happen over and over and over again across the different subjects and throughout the year. So if your team can kind of maybe just say, this week we're going to focus on language arts. We're going to get a really solid participation plan in language arts. We're going to muddle our way through the other subjects this week, which they shouldn't be, but next week, boy, the subject area we're having trouble with is math. Let's spend some time on math this week. Best sort of. Part 2 is documenting from the IEP what are called general supports that should apply everywhere. If one of your kiddos seems to needs a lot of support in the area of managing his or her behavior, I find it really helpful, and I think team members or paraprofessionals could find it really helpful to just have that written reminder of what they should always be thinking about. So under sensory, do any of your kids use an FM hearing system to help focus their attention, or if they have a hearing deficit? Okay, those FM, either sometimes teachers wear a thing around their neck and then it comes to the whole classroom, or sometimes teachers wear a little microphone around their neck and there's this little transmitter thing on your kid's desk, and it just amplifies the teacher's voice above all the other noise in the classroom. If that is not there and working all the time, your kid's not having access to what's going on. So, FM hearing system, um, charged and in place on student's desk every time. Let's just go over to behavior. Choice of a sensory break needs to be given every 20 minutes. Let's see. Staff will not tell the student what not to do, but will use please do language in reminding students about appropriate behavior. Because you know the number one word that I hear kids with Down syndrome, that I observe kids with Down syndrome hearing? No, or don't. Yeah, and some of our kids are pretty strong-willed. They hear no or don't. Pretty strong-willed, that's right. So, and it's hard, you know. You're just a regular educator. You're just regular paraprofessional. You just think saying no is what you're supposed to say. So the reminder is, staff will say, please put your pencil in your desk instead of don't throw your pencil on the floor. Over to medical. Needs to have protein snack every 2 hours. Needs to have G-tube cleaned out at the end of every feeding. Under equipment, some of your little ones, students, might have some augmentative communication device that sits inside a mount. It's just a contraption that holds it up there. Mount, communication, iPad mount, communication device mount must be positioned at a 45-degree angle from the student facing forward. Some kids have vision issues, and unless they've got their stuff in the right place or, you know, sitting up on a slant board, they're not going to have access. Reminders of those general supports. Let's go down to the next part of the forum. Okay. This is now really drilling down to when the teacher is doing a guided reading lesson. So the routine, Sarah, is guided reading. And that's the time when the teacher splits the kids up into 3 groups. 2 groups are working independently, and the teacher has, you know, the 5 kids around her in a little semicircle that includes your kid with Down syndrome. So actually guided reading should go, that's fine. And then let's just space down from guided reading. If I were to walk into the guided reading class, or you were, what would you see the typical students doing? Number 1, you'd see them opening their books to the right page. You would see them holding their books in front of them. These are just little bullet points. They would be reading when it comes to be their turn. They would be answering comprehension questions. And they would be asking the teacher to explain something about the reading. These are, actually go down here, but that's okay, Sarah. Yeah. That's what participation looks like, right? That's not some general idea of, I want my kid to be included in general ed. That's like, here's what I want my student to be included in. Now, what supports does my child need specific to reading? Under accessible instructional materials, you would put modified text. You might put graphic organizer. You know what a graphic organizer is? You probably all do because you're, okay. Under accessible, you might say, big book of graphic organizers, yeah. Under accessible instructional materials, a digital version of the book that your child could listen to. So it's a piece of text that has text to speech output. So it reads in a synthesized computer voice. And during free time or at home or in a ride on the car, your kid can be listening to that same book on her iPad because it's coming up what she's reading. It can be the regular book. It could be the modified book, whatever you choose. Let's go over to the up a little bit, Sarah. And this is communication supports. Needs to have solar system vocabulary available on Light Tech communication board. Comments need to be programmed into the iPad Pro Loco to Go or Touch Chat communication program. Questions need to be programmed in so the child can ask questions. Another thing I see really typically is that we ask a lot of questions of kids throughout a typical day. We often don't teach them to ask questions. And we know that good students ask a lot of questions. Let's give our kids ways to ask questions like, could you read that again? I don't understand that. Tell me more. Some of those are comments, but you get that general idea. The fourth column, assistive technology, needs first author, that's a proprietary name, first author writing software, or needs Clicker Connect writing software, which are both programs to enable students who cannot yet spell individual words to write with whole words that have pictures next to them. So that even if your kid can't write, the main idea of Sarah Plain and Tall is that people can establish a family anywhere or something like that. You can actually set up these communication apps so that your child can communicate and write those ideas, right? Caleb is, and the options might be shy, strong, or stubborn. Caleb, one push, is one push, strong, period, pops up into the window, tap the window, and it reads it out loud. It has the pictures and the words in the window of these softwares. Okay, peer supports. Reads with a buddy during buddy reading time. Buddy uses buddy's finger, his finger, to what would you call it? Underline the text as friend is reading it. Buddy will explain difficult vocabulary to friend, something like that. Let's go down, Sarah. And you know what we should do, Sarah? We should do a save as this on my computer, and I'll actually make sure that Sarah can post the blank form and the one that we're filling out now, okay? Because you won't remember a lot of this when you leave. Do any of your children use an augmentative communication device? Okay. What is your? On an iPad. Pro Loco to Go on an iPad. Nova Chat on an iPad or a special device? Okay, on a tablet or a computer. Touch Chat on an iPad. Pro Loco to Go on a very high-tech communication system. This part really gives some guidance to your speech pathologist for how to make decisions about what vocabulary is programmed into the device versus what vocabulary might be on a paper communication board. We're not going to fill this out, Sarah, because it's too detailed. Let's go down one more, and there's only one more part. Here's our summary about the accessible instructional materials. I asked the general ed teacher, and that's why this says class here, to tell me what text is going to be used. So why don't you write Romeo and Juliet Oh gosh, I'm out of solar system, aren't I? Let's say chapter 9 in science book and National Geographic website. Because actually the National Geographic website has text in it, and we need to think about accessibility of that text. Worksheets. They're going to have a definitions worksheet about planets or something. Tools, technology, and software. Students will use the brain pop, BRAINPOP, will be used to illustrate the rotation and revolution of the planets. So, okay. And over on graphic organizers, yes, Inspiration is a graphic organizer program. It's a software. And all the kids are going to have to fill out a graphic organizer in preparation for them writing their report. And now down here under student, we need to think about what modifications or adaptations need to be made to enable all this to be accessed. Chapter 9 in science book. I will guarantee you that you can find some already available low reading level book about the solar system. You can find it online. Somebody's created it somewhere. If they haven't, then somebody needs to adapt that text and make it shorter and maybe less difficult vocabulary words and maybe add some pictures. And you're going to know how to do that because you're going to have the guidelines for doing that on the Guild website. There are also some apps available that I've listed them in those guidelines for making accessible materials that can help you with the process of taking pages and pages and pages of text and shortening it and substituting easier words for harder words. And that could be a real time saver. Thank you. Worksheet. So we're going to say adapted worksheet with Jeremy's priority vocabulary words on it. So he can match pictures and words, pictures and descriptors to the planets. Tools, technology. Brain Pop is great. Because he can listen to that Brain Pop video. It's a little illustrated cartoon figures. Graphic organizers. There are really complicated graphic organizers with, 28 things on them. So you might say graphic organizer with main idea and 3 supporting details is what Jeremy needs for his graphic organizer. When do people have time to do all this? If they weren't teaching separate classes, they might have more time. Parents, you might help with some of this. You might help finding adapted materials to support your team. You may find videos or brain pop videos that are related that you can share with your team. You can try your hand at adapted materials. But then this is now the plan. And I'm going to tell you that no matter what the science unit is, whether it's solar system or atoms or characteristics of animals or whatever, these support plans are going to look really the same over and over again. Do you see what I mean by that? The supports are going to look really the same. People can get really good at doing this fast after they've tried it several times. And it would also be great for teachers to be able to now save these someplace so other teachers can look at them in other years. Yes. Thank you. That's brilliant. Oh, around the country. If Sarah will make a note of it, I don't know. I'm going to try and find out. Sarah, if you make a note, Cheryl's going to try and find People in Missouri and Kansas who could mentor other teachers. Sarah, you might know people, but we'll have to do some checking, okay? So if you keep checking back on the Guild website. So I'm going to save this, and then we're going to wrap up. And I'm saving this on my good shaper, Sarah. What can't you do? She can do everything. Okay. If you Google the dignity of risk, somewhere out there in cyberspace is this one-page little article called The Dignity of Risk. And it's about the fact that when families advocate for their children to be included in general ed or to go live in the community, it's scary for them, and they're concerned about safety, as well they should be. But it explains that there is some dignity that we give to the person with a disability when we take risks as educators, when we take risks as families, and when we support our kids to take reasonable risks to put themselves out there. So I want to end with this video that I think kind of exemplifies that idea of the dignity of risk. A lot of you may have seen this. Have you seen this?
Those hearts that have no scars to show, the ones that never do let go, and risk the table being turned. We call them fools, have to dance with them, the flame, who chances sorrow and the shame, it always comes with you. But you got to be tough when consumed by desire. It's not enough just to stand outside the fire. You're gonna burn yourself. No, but you're just afraid that you're gonna be very much worse. It's gonna get worse. We call them strong, those who can face this world alone, who seem to get by on their own, those who will never take the fall. We call them weak, who are unable to resist the slightest chance of nonsense, and for that forsake it all. They're so hell-bent on living, walking a wire. It's not living if you stand outside the fire. Standing outside the fire. Standing outside the fire.
Life is not tried, it is merely survived when you're standing outside the fire.
There's this love that is burning deep in my soul, constantly yearning to get out of control, wanting to fly higher and higher. I can't abide standing outside the fire. first people I ever got to associate myself with was a kid named Gerard. Gerard was the guy who played the kid in Standing Outside the Fire. John Small was interviewing children for this part, and John told me the thing that made him sign Gerard was a question that he asked him. He asked him if he knew what the difference between real life and fantasy was. And Gerard explained to him what real life was, and then looked at the production assistant, which was an extremely, just a very beautiful woman, and looked back at John and said, "That's fantasy."
Thank you very much.